Perfect. Yeah, our last speaker will be coming soon, so she'll be on the way. Hello? Okay, it works. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Colombia Pavilion. We're truly gathered for a special event. It's called Young Changemakers from Advocacy to Ecosystems. We can craft holistic solutions for systemic change. So initially, this event was conceptualized with a focus on nature-based solutions, building a momentum on the event we hosted at the Latin American and the Caribbean Climate Week. Our goal was to continue exploring innovative strategies for harnessing the power of nature to fight against climate change. However, when we delved into the selection process, into hundreds of speakers, we realized the scope of our discussion needed to be expanded. These young leaders, selected from a diverse pool of bright minds, are not just focusing on nature-based solutions. They're attacking the climate crisis from multiple angles, from policy, technology, education, entrepreneurship, and advocacy. And their work embodies a holistic approach addressing the systemic challenges that underpin our global climate crisis. So it is with a great pleasure that we shift our focus to encompass these broader perspectives. Today we will explore how systems change can be a common denominator in our collective efforts to tackle climate change. And addressing these critical tipping points is imperative. Our speakers today are at the forefront of this mission, and they bring with their unique experiences and solutions, demonstrating that impactful change requires a multifaceted approach. So first, let's begin with Kaluki Paul. He's an environmental defender from Kenya. Kaluki's work spans community organizing, climate communication, and environmental education. His leadership in campaigns like Decolonize initiative in Kenya exemplifies his passion for environmental justice. So, Kaluki, go ahead.
Hello, hi everyone. So my name is Kaluki Paul, as rightly introduced. And yes, I'm a youth climate advocate and environmental defender from Kenya with a background in environmental conservation and natural resource management. And for the past 5+ years, I've worked in the Kenyan and by large African soil to sort of create the need for meaningfully engaging African youth and youth that are actually taking lots of solutions and actions on the ground, not just to restore ecosystems, but to secure livelihoods for themselves. So in this regard, I'm the Executive Director of Kenya Environmental Action Network, in short called KEEN. And so through KEEN, we come together to bring young people on capacity building, policy influence, knowledge sharing, and youth solutions. In Kenya, the idea is we are one of Africa's youngest populations. And so as young people, we cannot just be seen as a statistic, right? We also have, creativity, energy, passion, and innovations. So we need to move beyond that, young people are just activists, they're just there, and so we can bring them whenever we need them, to a pathway where young people actually contribute to our national development agenda, to climate actions on the ground, and also being part of inspiring the future generation and the livelihoods that we want them to create for the 21st century. So KEEN has been able to work with government, private sector, and other stakeholders to sort of create the space for the new frontiers of employment, the new frontiers of livelihoods for our youth, and also really working with learners so that we can then create possibilities on organic farming, on experiential education, and just letting young people enjoy nature while reaping benefits from it and contributing to sustainable development. That is one of the things that we're doing in Kenya. And again, I'm happy to be here and happy to perhaps take some questions when Q&A comes, and really also hearing from the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaluki. That's very impressive. And now we have Mariana Vasconcelos. She's a leader in digital agriculture and a climate activist. She works at AgroSmart, and her contributions to various global platforms demonstrate her commitment to innovation and gender equality in climate-related sectors. So, Mariana, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I am from Brazil, from the south of Minas Gerais. I am daughter of farmers, so I grew up in the field and seeing the interaction with nature and how my family was also affected by climate change. I have a passion for technology, so my approach on trying to solve things is by building products. We understand that data is a fundamental piece for solving the climate crisis, and so is agriculture and food systems. So that's what we started focusing on, that if we had data, everything we measure can be managed, and it would be essential for transitioning, know where we are and where we are heading, and monitoring that progress. Since then, I have been engaged not only on building this company. When I started when I was 23, that's why the youth perspective here, that we are never too young to start a change. And it went beyond the building of a company, but as mentioned here, I became an activist as a young global leader at the World Economic Forum, and I'm a board member in different climate initiatives helping to build policy to accelerate the adoption of technology and nature-based solutions.
Thanks, Mariana. Now let's welcome Thomas Westhoff. He's an advocate for building with nature, and his work focuses on integrating nature-based solutions into global water sector strategies. Thomas combines his rich academic background with a strong commitment for sustainable environmental practices. So go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm Thomas Westhoff. I'm working for Wetlands International, a global NGO working on protecting and restoring wetlands globally. And with that, you mentioned building with nature. That is a principle where we are working more with nature-based solutions, as you also mentioned, so something which also come up in the regional climate weeks. I must say, unfortunately, those following the negotiations, it's not part of the text of the global stocktake now. Well, it used to be past COP, so something to keep an eye out for, because I think very important to have nature-based solutions there, as we have seen that often conventional technologies are not adaptive, cannot give a benefit also towards nature. So I do that also in a larger framework. In the Netherlands, a group of dredging companies, but also civil engineers came together called EcoShape, and they work on projects and also to bring nature-based solutions globally further. A good example of this is, for example, in Indonesia, in Demak, where they restored mangroves, but also had multiple benefits, protection against flooding, but also increased income for farmers because of the aquaculture they could grow there. So that's a bit on the nature-based solutions side of things. From my youth advocacy background, I've been for 3 years part of EAS, which is the biggest student association in the field of agriculture, more than 10,000 members in more than 50 countries. And I'm the former president. Last year I was the president of this association, and together with young people across the globe, we really try to work up the advocacy agenda. We have a AAA strategy. First up, aspiration, really to what was already mentioned, to really think as young people we can also have aspire to be taken seriously, to go to UN conventions, to get status with the FAO and others. But also advocacy, to be part of Yongo and other networks to really get out our messaging. But lastly, also action. So we are collaborating with partners all over the world. We have more than 40 locations. We have locally led projects by our members. So I think that's a really good example, and I really see a movement starting last year. The first time we had a youth pavilion. Yongo is getting stronger voices. So yeah, I really hope a youth day we have since recent COPs. So yeah, it's nice to see that there's attention around it. I think we are getting more and more a seat at the table now. It's really time for us to also taking into account and take the value of the words we say at that table. So yeah, looking forward to continuing that discussion here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, and it's amazing to see really the work that the association is doing. So, for example, I was able to contribute to one of their bioeconomy policy papers as partnered with the International Forestry Stewardship Association.
Work with IFSA.
So, with IFSA, and there's other developments actually. I'm going to talk about that throughout the week. But thank you, Thomas. And lastly, we have Paola Acevedo. She's a young Honduran engineer making strides in sustainable energy and climate change adaptation. Her work with the United Nations and involvement in the youth-led initiative in Honduras highlight her diverse expertise and dedication to empowering young people in climate action.
Hi, first of all, I'm going to speak from Sustenta Honduras. It's where my heart is, the work we do with young people in Honduras. We are a youth-led organization based in Honduras in Central America. We focus on impacting climate policies, on building initiatives to build resilience, and also capacity building and climate education. I hope to speak a little bit more about the initiatives we have in a minute, but yeah, we are an NGO led by youth. We lead the events, we lead the initiative, the projects only by youth. So it's good to see that now in COP we can share all the initiatives, all the projects we're doing, and opening these spaces for young people. And I'm always advocating to include people from Latin America, people from Central America, that even in spaces of Latin America, sometimes Central America is not included. So we always advocate for that, advocate to have a regional approach where we can include countries, every country from Latin America, so we can be stronger and also create capacities in the youth from these countries. And yeah, I hope to speak a little bit more about the initiatives we have.
Of course, yeah, thank you. And we can really delve a bit in more of what you're doing. So I have a specific question. What strategies are effective in engaging youth in climate change adaptation in developing countries from what you've seen so far in Europe?
In Honduras, something that we always advocate for is learning by doing. We have many projects where we include youth in research activities, we include youth in leading the projects, because that's the only way that we're gonna create these skills and have a way to use these skills. And we have projects like Aire Limpio Honduras, it's Clean Air Honduras. This project is one of the recent projects we received funds from the French Embassy in Honduras, and it's a project where we are going to take air quality monitors to different spaces, different cities of the country, and we're going to be able to monitor how the realities in areas that are, communities that are close to the thermoelectric power plants, near protected areas that usually they do not have this kind of monitoring. We have only air quality monitors in two cities. It's the principal cities of the country, the capital city and the industrial city. So we're trying to take this project to small communities that sometimes are underserved, communities that are left behind, and they do not have any type of data to advocate for the bad things that are happening with the thermoelectric power plants and the projects that are done near the protected areas.
Oh, that's amazing, thanks. And going back to Thomas, we've seen so far that many of these nature-based solutions are developed in areas where the rural communities are vulnerable. There has been all sorts of challenges in terms of poverty and economic insecurity. So in order to make a long-lasting impact, I do believe that you should have these technical aspects of NBS connected with the need for community involvement and education. So how can you make that effective or long-lasting? How do you really work in that perspective?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, I think it's very important that nature-based solutions are embraced, that there is intrinsically motivated communities embracing also these projects. And in that sense, I think if we look at the IUCN, for example, that came out with a global standard on nature-based solutions, they are very clear. It should be an ecosystem-based approach, tackling societal challenges, which has a benefit for humans, but also on biodiversity. And I think there it comes in because it tackles a societal challenge, and it has also benefits for the community. So in reference to the project in Indonesia we had, first of all, there was very much local engagement, but it was also a problem that in the region was there that people faced, the floodings, and they also saw the opportunities to still make use of mangroves in that sense, to get a premium for the aquaculture practices that they could do there. So that also opens new doors, creates win-win solutions. I think that is, it's more like a paradigm shift in that sense, to look different, to look at different options. But as long as it's really a nature-based solutions, there should be an increase in human well-being, and yeah, societal challenges will be tackled. So in that sense, yeah, if it works, if it's embraced, then it will have a lasting impact.
That's how it is. And going back to Mariana, it's really rewarding to see your role in gender equality, especially in Latin America, where there's so many challenges we have to go through. But how does digital technology can really empower climate action, especially when you're talking about gender equality?
Sure, I think women have a very important role in the community. They are usually educators. They defend and advocate for sustainability. So we understood that convincing them about the importance of technology and data, they would be an instrument to educate that community and leverage the concept. Technology adoption is key to transition. I don't think we can actually understand how we are being affected and decide on what to do unless we have the data. So we have built a farmer community with over 100,000 farmers in Latam, where they become sensors on their own. So they report if it's raining in their farm, if they have a frost, how much they have produced, what's the yield. So we generate benchmarks where we can help them understand if a disease is coming, if a climate event, extreme event is coming, or how well they're doing, how to adopt best practices. And then we build on the collective knowledge with machine learning, and then we deploy real sensors to have more ground truth information and give them back all the models on helping them to predict diseases, predict frost and fire, how much to irrigate, when to spray, so that we can help them to increase up to 20% in yield, whereas reducing the cost and the use of inputs in up to 60%. So I think if we are talking about climate mitigation, we need farmers to use data and technology so they can have less greenhouse gases emissions. But there's also the whole piece about resilience and adaptation. They need to be quicker to understand what's going on, how climate and the standards that are used to are changing so they can respond. And in that sense, women are usually the ones that advocate for implementing a change. Because many times farmers are run by people that are there for many, many years, third generations, like our grandparents, our parents, and it's very hard to convince them to why to do it. And youth and succession has been key in adopting and leveraging these technologies, and women in placing that role, like that's important, that's now, and how to teach people digital inclusion and so on.
Totally, and also when you're thinking about removing the entrenched power asymmetries that are in the agricultural sector, and when you're really focusing on making that long-lasting impact that is not only for the current generation, but also for the youngs that are coming in and really want to go to the cities, but there's also a way of how they can live in the land. Kaluki, really understanding your work in youth, have you seen any specific instance where your youth engagement or the organizations you work with have directly impacted the policy decision or an environmental campaign in Kenya?
Thank you. One thing I always say that youth are more than a statistic, right? And youth are leaders of not tomorrow, but today. In the case of Kenya, I'm part of a project called Inuka, which is Swahili for rising up. So it's ideally based on the understanding that, yes, nature-based solutions, nothing new. Communities have been practicing it since time immemorial, and especially indigenous communities. But then with the new definition from IUCN, especially how do we then make a case for communities and young people who are already doing a lot to restore the ecosystems while also giving and deriving livelihood from the same. So we've been engaging young people to train them up on the IUCN nature-based solutions, but also together learning them on the possibilities on how we can sustainably use our natural ecosystems to protect, manage, and also restore them. And then how do we also train them on sustainable entrepreneurship ventures that will help them then to get business skills and restoration skills that work for them, for their families, for their food, and for their markets. And then ideally microgranting them to further enhance the local actions that they're doing on the ground. So to me, this approach, helps them a lot to see nature as a living being that we need to take care of, and then it will take care of us in the long run. So that's one of the things we are doing. And then we also have nature-based solutions, for more like technology for nature-based solutions. And it's how then we take advantage of the Android phone technology and era. How do we move youth in Kenya beyond the TikToks and Instagram videos and more into using it for more, productive ways. And so we train them on how they can use GIS and maps to, monitor and track restoration efforts on the ground, and uploading them in a way that will provide data-based evidence on what is happening on the ground. And so through these, they actually get more access to finances and more access to funds that can support them to do more restoration works in the country. So far we're working with about 5 youth groups in the country to see how to make this possible, and also investing in drone technology to, sort of like give this area view maps on how restoration is happening. And, the photos before, the photos during, and photos after, and then they get data-backed evidence on the possibilities of using technologies to our advantage. Lastly, I'll finish with one campaign that is closer to my heart. You just mentioned it when you introduced me. It's called Colonize. So ideally, I worked as a communications lead in the past 6 years for a network of groups that came together to push the Kenyan government to stop investing in coal in the country. And this is noting that Kenya already is 80% powered by renewable energy. And so the government of the day had gone into what I call bed with Chinese investors, and they were striking a deal to bring 10-50 megawatts of coal-fired power plant in a UNESCO World Heritage Site that is filled with lots of indigenous communities. It has some of the serene ecosystems, and so the project was to destroy lots of the natural ecosystems, but also move most of the indigenous communities from their territories. And that meant even having their graveyards destroyed, their livelihoods destroyed, their homesteads and their ancestries wiped from their face. So we sued the government, and we engaged on this serious communications campaign and bringing youth and communities to see the effects of countries that are investing in coal. And South Africa was a key case study for us, that we played documentaries and brought people from South Africa to just come and tell people how it feels to not breathe good air, how it feels to have lung cancer, how it feels to suffer from abortion due to chemicals that are coming from these coal mines. And this really helped us, and in September of 2019, we thankfully won the case against the government, and that project has not proceeded. And to me, it just shows what youth is. When we come together, when we join our efforts for a good cause, we can deliberately change the narrative, we can shift the needle of change, and we can actually own the narrative and tell our leaders that this is our future, and we demand a seat, not just to be seen, but to be heard, and to inform the change that we want to see, that we want to live, and that we want the future generations to see. So these are the 3 examples that I talk about for now. And yes, glad to have been part of it and seeing that they've really transformed the Kenyan youth and the African youth at large.
Oh wow, I'm glad I'm recording this. But yeah, it's very inspiring, Kaluki. I appreciate it. So yeah, going into maybe some quicker questions. If you, let's say you have a magic lamp, and is there one thing you could implement in terms of policy or technology, what would it be? Maybe in the specific sectors you're working on. Yeah, who wants to begin? It could be anything.
I I think that's really hard because I personally do not believe like in a one silver bullet solution. I think like nature is complex and it's an ecosystem. And we need to come together as an ecosystem of communities to solve it and an ecosystem of technology. So I think we are still a lot behind on connectivity. A lot of Latin American countries do not have internet in the field, so how they're going to adopt the best practices. I think soil measurements is still also very behind. Even the sensors to just measure electroconductivity, moisture, still fail a lot, have a lot of variation. So we are trying to advance more on carbon measurement of soil, like carbon retention, and a lot of models are being developed, but there is still a big scientific challenge to get to a place where we can remotely sense and understand carbon retention and all of that game. So I would say not a specific one, but hopefully more people engage in solving hard problems like connectivity in the soil.
For me, it will be technology, and I just ask the audience, do you believe that technology can help create the solutions that we need for our ecosystems and the climate change, right? But this technology is not the new technologies that we know, it's nature. Nature has self-healing and self-calibrating systems, and we just need to listen to Mother Nature. We need to listen to our cries. We need to observe our ways and somehow work with her to that era where everything is sustainable, is regenerative, and actually gives us much as we work with her. So to me, Mother Nature is that technology that will be the silver bullet anyway, though we know we need a lot of like the ecosystem of efforts. Yeah, but nature is that eventual technology that we just need to embrace, work with, and drive us to the solutions that we are looking for in the climate crisis and biodiversity breakdown.
I fully agree with that. So in that sense, what I mentioned already, I think the nature-based solution should really be part of the global stocktake text as it isn't so far. I also think what can make a big difference, I found the proposal of Al Gore quite interesting a few days ago, because now we're all finding consensus, and we see with the phase out of fossil fuels, for example, that there are some states with huge interest in oil. We are in one now. Have difficulties with moving with these texts. Well, it is crucial. So it would be interesting to look how the UNFCCC can be changed in that sense. And his proposal was to move more to maybe a majority system of voting. So I think that can be very impactful, but the implementation of that will be very, very difficult. But yeah, that would be a powerful way to move forward with this convention.
I think if I had a magic wand and I could do something, I would erase from people's minds that young people are here to learn. So we could be taken for our experience, our work, what we studied, our masters, not only for seeing young people as you're here to learn, come, listen, but include us in the decision making, include us in all the implementation processes, and so it can be easier for us to access grants, access all these funds for the real implementation in the communities. We have the energy and we have the people to do it, but it's really hard to access youth-focused grants in these different countries. So that's what I would do.
Thanks. And actually, Mariana kind of anticipated me, because that was a point, like saying from different perspectives what you can do in order to change these complex systems. But overall, like going with Paola, I want to ask, what would you recommend our audience, the young people that might be thinking coming to next COP, like how can you make it successful? Why they should be here? Why it's not just talks? Like how you can give like maybe some practical advice, because at least it was very helpful for me. It's my first COP, and it really takes forward what's the importance of youth and what they can really do here.
I think first I want to thank the Colombian Pavilion for including youth in many spaces, not only this one, and also for including Central America. And for next COPs, I think we need to see more involvement of youth and also more involvement of children, not only young people, 25 years old, but also children. We, from Sustento Honduras, we support Colombian activist Francisco Vera Manzanares, and I think there should be more spaces for children in the next COP. And for the young people here, I would say look for these spaces. There are some spaces, but we need to create these spaces also by ourselves, organize in the regional matter. We can be stronger if we, as a region, Latin America, come together as COP, not separate each country, having these efforts, but also support organizations from different countries. I feel like that's a way that we can make us stronger. And also, if you know a space where someone from a country, or you met this youth here, you can invite them to these spaces. Sometimes we only think of the people we know, and we should invite more people to these spaces, so we don't see the same people on the panels, we don't see the same people on these meetings with funders. We need to open it for more youth, for more people.
Yeah, fully agree with that. Very good points in that sense. Yeah, I think if we, a few days ago it was announced how many fossil fuel lobbyists are walking around here. I think 7 times more fossil fuel lobbyists than youth delegates. I think that is the problem. Like, we should look who's sitting here, who's walking around here, who's striking the deals and issues set. Youth is often not included. Well, we are the future. We are the future decision makers. We are also living through the decisions made here today. So I think it's completely logical that we then are also are sitting at the table. At the same time, I think it's very important that we get close to our parties, our own national delegates, and make sure that they are also following up what they promise at home, and what also, if they promise here something, that they do it at home, because there the national action comes in. Because in my case, I'm from the Netherlands, often hear very positive stories, but if I then look the billions of euros they're putting on fossil fuels back home, they are not following up on the promises made here. So that relation, that link, is, I think, very important to make, and then youth delegates here can form that bridge.
Amazing, I think you said it all. But I just take it a notch higher. First, it's my 4th COP, and I feel every year I come to a COP, it's always different, it's always new. And so I encourage young people, whether they've come here or they're still home, please don't be shy, grab these opportunities, research, look for them, because there's so much out there. But also, what my brother said, so there's a lot happening here, but there's a lot that needs to happen back home. And this is not where the change happens. Most of the change happens from back in our communities, in our countries. So we need to hold our presidents, our countries, our governments responsible, and we need to make them stand true to the words they're committing here. It's not enough for them to commit, it's enough for them to work with us, deliver these financing and resources to the grassroots, and actually work with young people from the project bases that are found in, right? I also feel it's important for young people to take advantage of storytelling. I'm an impact storyteller, and I know you tell a story about people a certain way, you create a bias, but if the people own the narrative, they change the rhetoric. So I urge young people to also take stage, tell your stories, be confident, and just know there's no expert out here. You create the courage and confidence as you go by, and so own your narratives and work throughout the year to bring this to COP. And I feel this way we'll have more participation of young people outside of COP, but also within the COP spaces.
Well, I think that acknowledging that imposter syndrome is real. So many times we keep asking ourselves, like, why should I be there? The other people might be more accomplished, or why would anyone want to hear me? And I think everybody has something to teach, and I'm sure that the unique perspectives of each young person is very valuable. And I think it's in our side to share information. Getting access to COP is not as obvious as it might seem. And if we know the ways, how do we open the ways to other young people? How do we help them to get badges? How do we help them to get speaking opportunities? I really like echoing what Paula said on like making space at the table. So if we are at the table, it's our responsibility to bring more and more people to the table.
Yeah, thank you all. Very inspiring, insightful. Now it's time for the audience. If you have any questions, it would be great to hear you out.
Well, maybe you are talking about storytelling, and I think that's really valid. Is there a story that you could tell us that's made you jump into this work?
That is spot on. Thank you. Yeah, I love storytelling, and so many of us could know the story of the late Wangari Maathai. She's a professor who is the first African female Nobel laureate. And Wangari was many things. She was a professor, she was a mother, she was an activist, she was also a politician. And I like the bit of her being a politician and an activist at the same time. In fact, that lady one time qualified to be the Minister of Environment, but because of the male-dominated systems, they gave her the Deputy Minister, and the man who did not know anything about environment was actually her boss. But she was very resilient, she was very tenacious, and she still went out in the streets. So right now, most people know about Nairobi being the global capital with the only global capital with a national park within the city, and that is thanks to the efforts of the late Professor Wangari Maathai, thanks to all the fights she had. At some point she had a coma actually, because the police butchered her, or more like beat her up unconscious. And I just think that story makes the boy I was into the man I am now. Like, she inspired most of us back then to just be courageous, stand up for ourselves, and just know that gender cannot define you, age cannot define you, or other kinds of biases, that you are an equal human being, and in your space you can do a lot to influence others and to change the world to a better place. So I would say that is one of my stories that has made me who I am today.
You're definitely a very good storyteller, Kaluki. Are there any other questions? Okay, let's give our round of applause to our amazing panelists. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I invite you we have a youth-led reception at Nature Pavilion on 11th from 5 to 7, and the idea is we are bringing youth leaders, world leaders, investors and funders together for networking sessions. For those of you who have projects and pitches that you want to showcase, please come talk to the funders. We are more than happy to announce those deals that you're going to strike with the funders. So please, 11th, 5 to 7, come to Nature Pavilion. Happy to host you for the reception.
Great question. I can get back to you, but we're gonna have a long negotiation.
I love your storytelling, like connectivity in Indonesia and Netherlands, everything. Like amazing. It's all about experience, right? Amazing. Like the Kenyan guys and the girls, amazing stories and like talking really about Indian experience. We'll be there.